Welcome back to another edition. I want to speak on something that I spoke on around, I think it's episode 108, 109. It touches on that, which is the biggest risk to a financial plan for elderly is their children. And that is very true. I wanted to take that a little different direction in this particular podcast and speak on the fact that from my experience and position as a financial planner and a financial therapist is that the need for financial planning actually grows more intense as we age rather than less. And this comes from something that is not infrequent for me to observe or experience with clients. And I think I've written about this. I don't know if I've spoken on the podcast much about this, but there is a tendency for clients as they hit retirement age to think that their financial planning is done. And that could be because there is so much focus on getting ready for retirement with the client, and so much focus on between the years of 65 and 73, when there are all sorts of planning needs to be done, especially if a person has an IRA, a Roth, a 401k, and are attempting to try and minimize the required minimum distributions and the tax implications of managing those in a way to lessen the tax burden once a person begins to withdraw at age 73 from a lot of those. So we actually find in our financial planning firm that the tax needs, the tax planning for a senior is much more than that of somebody who's 30 years old or 40 years old or even a business owner. And I know this flies in the face of the money scripts of society that things get easier when a person faces retirement. And I mean, I have actually had clients discontinue services, financial planning services, as they age. And I would say the normal age really that I see this happening is probably after 75 and in the 80s. And they will often express something like, there's not much more financial planning for me to do. Everything is in place. I see these high fees that I'm paying. And I just think I can do this on my own. I've got kids that can help me because you're not doing much, so to speak. And I remember when one client said the equivalent of this. One of my planners said she doesn't realize she's just left the equivalent of a full-service bank to begin using a piggy bank. So that's what I want to address, because we can hit those periods of life where things are pretty stable financially. And it would be normal to question fees that a person's paying for a service that seemingly isn't needed. That's really quite reasonable. But therein is where some investigation needs to be done, because aging comes in what do I want to say, waves. And many of us age at different rates. Sometimes the aging process can be very gradual. Other times the aging process can almost come on like overnight, like and summers in the Black Hills can turn to winter in about a week. The fall is very short. And I remember another friend of mine who said once, aging is not for the weak of heart, which reminds me of Mark Twain, who said getting old is not for cowards. And this is really, really true. So what most people don't understand is financial planning is much easier for a 30-year-old who has pretty straightforward financial realities like a steady paycheck and a lot of room to make decisions in the future. Like I said, they're pretty straightforward, but seniors face a completely unique set of complex financial challenges. And most of these, as I've already said, both the senior and their caretakers, which are oftentimes the kids, can be completely unaware of this. So the key thing to take from this is that financial planning for a senior is anything but simple or straightforward. There's just a ton of things to consider. And I think one of the biggest threats is the threat of dementia. And of course, this comes on at different ages and different, different speeds. There's about 6.7 million Americans who live with Alzheimer's dementia, which is a form of dementia I've really found out is typically what we refer to as dementia. And that is expected to double by 2060. The sources that I've read suggest that the out-of-pocket costs of a person having dementia are several times greater than non-dementia. And the crazy thing with dementia is it can just really sneak up on a person, if I can put it that way, where a person becomes more confused. They become more suspicious. With Lewy body dementia, as I recently learned with the passing of my father-in-law, can lead to hallucinations, delusions, and extreme paranoia. So this just makes comprehending the complex financial situation of a senior even worse. I mean, just the normal cognitive decline can make all of the complexity of aging as it pertains to our finances difficult. And one of the real threats of dementia when it becomes paranoid or delusional is that the senior can become really vulnerable to predatory practices, making impulsive decisions. The paranoia can sadly leave them thinking that a trusted advisor that maybe they've had for literally decades is now an adversary, now somebody who is after their money. And I wrote a column on this many years ago about a client who called me twice saying I was stealing her money. She'd been a client, I think, for 15 years at that time. And as it turned out, I reminded her, no, we've changed this. Remember when we talked about this? And we've changed this particular dividend check from this account to make it easier. And Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, I remember that. And then 2 weeks later, you're stealing my money. And before I could contact her attorney, who was another one of her advocates, as was I, her accounts all closed, the money transferred to some financial institution of which I was not specifically aware, but the story I made up is that an annuity salesman got a hold of her and had a wonderful payday. So these are just, dementia is just one of the things that a senior can face. And it can come on so slowly that a person isn't even aware of it. Other things that make things complex are just the uncertainties of health. Negotiating the healthcare bureaucracy is not for the faint of heart. Really takes a village to be helping a person out. There's the normal cognitive decline that I talked about. There are complicated family dynamics. Not every child has the best interest of the parents at heart. And it's been heart-rending to watch some of those stories. There are the looming long-term care needs that are always issues to try and address and to try and time correctly, not wait too long to put those in place. Of course, the financial demands of long-term care, and I'm not talking about insurance, I'm talking about getting into a senior living facility or assisted living or skilled nursing care or in-home. And then something else that a lot of folks don't pay a lot of attention to is when we retire. For many people, this means starting to withdraw on the retirement funds that they've worked so hard to set aside. And done properly, the money will last for the person's life. Done improperly, they can decline at too great of a rate in early retirement and really leave more of a trickle of income than a nice steady flow of income. So all of this becomes a perfect storm for someone who is in their senior years. So one of the ways to try and prevent this is to have an existing relationship with a financial planner. And as I've just explained, that's no protection against the insidious disease of Alzheimer's, dementia, or even cognitive decline. But if a person doesn't have a financial planner in their life, and this is not what's thought a lot about, if they come to the realization they need a planner late in life, it can be almost like coming to that realization. Well, I don't know that you come to it. Having the realization you need a primary care physician, and because your primary care physician just retired or left the community, you're left looking for a PCP, and you can't find one. And I cannot tell you how many of my financial planning clients have had their primary care physician retire or leave and have been unable, especially in their 80s, to find someone that will take them on. The thing you hear the most is we are full with Medicare patients. We're not taking any more Medicare patients. This can be the same in finding a financial planner. I wrote in a column that covered this. It's like searching for a unicorn in a maze. And why? Wouldn't any financial planner take an elderly client? And the answer is no. I found that out, as many planners that do take an older client once, where we took on a person, and there is a ton of work involved in taking on an elderly person when it comes to searching for basis in all the investments, trying to understand the dynamics of what's happened in their life and all of the legal documents, and getting everything in order. It is not is very time consuming and very expensive. Typically a planner doesn't charge enough for what they do. And then once everything was in line, in a year or so, this particular client, at the urging of a family member, left us because all the hard work was done. So this is not unusual. So many financial planners just will not take a senior. And another reason for this is many financial planners charge based on the AUM model, that's assets under management. And so what happens is, let me explain that a little more. Assets under management means the fee is based on the net worth of the client or the assets held under investment. And it's usually a flat percentage that decreases when the assets go up. But in retirement, what I've never heard this publicly stated by a planner, but the assets of an elderly person tend to stagnate or go down over time, while the amount of work goes up. I recently had a client that had, let's call it $6 million, and was complaining that the $6 million isn't changing. And hasn't changed for 10 years. And when I investigated that, I found out that over that 10 years, he had actually taken out around $5 million. So the growth on the portfolio had kept up with the amount being spent, but it hadn't grown. This is not uncommon. So that's, and I will say that most financial planners, especially those that are advocate fee only, they're not going to let a client go in their senior years because now they're costing them more than what the income is, because the income is dropping, but the amount of work is going up. It's as I've spoken before, it's a calling for most planners, not a pure business venture where you're focusing only on the profitability of a client. So that's something that I don't know, and I've never heard that mentioned out loud by planners. So what does a person do if you find yourself or your client, or as a financial therapist, you find your client in this position where they really need financial planning, and maybe finding a financial planner is difficult. Here's something to consider, is looking for a planner that charges flat fees or hourly rates. Now, this could be a more expensive proposition based on the AUM model. As I just said, sometimes the income is not keeping pace with the amount of work to be done. So it could be more expensive, but at least it's there, and it can be available, and it can assure that a person gets the services they need. So an hourly planner can really focus on the senior's well-being, and most importantly, not on commissions raised from the sale of financial products. Because when I was talking about not being able to find a planner, I'm talking about a fee-only advocate. You can probably definitely find somebody that will sell the senior something. Absolutely, and usually they're annuities. So an hourly planner is a way to focus on getting a financial fiduciary. A lot of seniors don't have the money to be able to afford those types of professional services. So there are local agencies on aging, community centers, even legal organizations that can offer some free or low-cost financial counseling. Usually not financial planning, but at least some counseling. It can be helpful to reach out to a family member that can really be trusted. They have knowledge of the senior's situation and more emotional understanding, theoretically, but that's not the case, right? In every family, sometimes it's quite the opposite, where the senior needs anybody but a family member. So it's important to understand that family members are not a substitute for professional financial planning, or planners and they can often do more harm than help. Something else that's available is a geriatric care manager. They're not in every city. They're not in every location. They're also known as aging life care professionals. There's probably other names for them, but they're private advocates, and they're consultants for aging clients and their families. Now, they charge by the hour, like a hourly financial planner would. They can help with a variety of tasks, such as facilitating and supervising medical services. They can do in-home visitations. They can find, hire, and oversee financial and medical services. They can consult on really challenging topics and complex issues, and they can keep family members informed about their loved ones. So these are great options if you happen to live in a market that has this as an option. And finally, you might be thinking, so what has this all to do with financial therapy? Well, financial therapy is a combination of financial and therapy, right? But a person needs to also focus on their mental health. I think there's another money script that, or maybe just a life script, that older folks don't need a therapist. Well, they may need a therapist more than somebody who's a lot younger. The emotional toll of all of these financial challenges can be devastating on a senior's well-being. So having the support of a financial therapist can really be life-changing and help make a significant impact on their emotional and financial well-being. They can be another support person, another advocate in that person's life to really help them cope with depression, which is often very prominent in the aging. My mother-in-law once called it age rage, and just all of those difficult emotions that can come to the surface. So my hope is that as a society, we can rewrite the narrative on aging. This isn't a time to neglect ourselves financially. It's really a time for more vigilance, heightened awareness. Seniors deserve not less, but more financial planning. A safety net that both has expertise in financial matters and compassion and the sensitivity in the emotional well-being. So, just as we age, the more critical that financial planning process becomes because of all of the risks that I've gone through. So my encouragement to you is to plan ahead for your golden years, to help make them as golden as possible and not be tarnished by financial anxieties and financial decline. And the sooner a person starts to put that support in place, the more benefits it's going to pay in the long run. Calling the financial fire department when things are burning often doesn't result in a good outcome. Calling for emotional support when a person is spiraling downward is often not the time to get the best results. Being proactive on all of this is so vitally important. I think I've talked about something we have called a journey into elderhood, and it's a self-assessment that we give financial planning clients, and that financial therapists can always can use as well, to evaluate where am I on 10 different life skills, 10 different really important things like driving or cooking for oneself. And it's a way that a person can start being aware of the slow decline as they age, and give them a chance to make decisions before the crisis happens. My brother once made a quip that older folks can decide to do something proactively when they have options, or wait until a crisis hits and other people are making the decisions for you. I think that was pretty wise advice. So thanks for listening. Again, if you have any questions, comments, please reach out to me at rick@rickkahler.com. And I look forward to talking to you again in another episode. Take care.